In this video, I'm going to use 30 phrasal verbs to tell you a story about my holidays. I've chosen over 10 more advanced verbs to teach you first, and you'll find the rest in the PDF in the link down in the description. For each of these verbs, I'm going to show you a short video clip so that you can associate it with a typical context in which it is used, and then we'll go over some tips and exercises for you to use these verbs in a natural way. So without further ado, let's have a look at the first clip. This video showed a girl who is leaving home for school. In other words, she's off to school. To be off to is a great phrasal verb that we can use when we want to say that we're going somewhere. We can use it in the context of daily activities. I'm off to the supermarket. Or for bigger trips. I'm off to China next week. You may remember that in one of our earlier videos we talked about be off on its own and said that we use it in order to say that somebody is not at work. So for instance, just as a revision, we can say, I can't meet Zoe tomorrow because she's off. Or, I'm going on holiday and I'll be off for a week. Ready for the next phrasal verb? Let's have a look at another video. This little clip showed a woman whose hobby is painting. Whenever you talk about hobbies or things you like doing, you can use two very natural phrasal verbs. Be into and go in for. So I can say, I'm not into painting myself, or my parents don't go in for big parties. Both of these verbs can be used interchangeably, but be into is a bit more popular among native speakers. And now, let's have a look at another clip. This video was all about emotions, and the man in it was sad. In other words, we could say he was down. To be down is a very natural phrasal verb which we can use if we want to express the meaning of being sad or depressed. So I could say, I was a little bit down this morning. Or, when was the last time you were a bit down? As you can see, be down goes very naturally with a bit in front of it. So next time you use it, try to use these words together. Let's have a look at another video. This video showed a couple visiting their friends. There are loads of phrasal verbs in this context in English, and in here we're going to focus on two very natural and frequent ones among native speakers. Drop in and pop in. Both of these verbs can be used interchangeably, and they'll make you sound great if you use them correctly. So you can say, feel free to drop in whenever you're near. Or, I'm not sure I'll have time to pop in. Note that if you want to talk about a place you've visited and use it as an object after drop in or pop in, the preposition will change from in to into. So we can say, we dropped into a pub on our way home. Or, I need to pop into a pharmacy. Actually, if you're not sure whether to use in or into, you can simply put by after drop or pop. Drop by and pop by. These verbs have exactly the same meanings as drop into, drop in, pop into, and pop in. So you can use them interchangeably. So we can say, we dropped by a pub on our way home, or I need to pop by a pharmacy. Whichever of these verbs you decide to use, just make sure that you are talking about a short visit. If you used any of them talking about a longer visit, they would sound quite out of place. For instance, saying, "I dropped by China the other day," would sound extremely odd. Now, for this next phrasal verb, let me tell you something about my dear friend Sarah. Now, Sarah is really into sweets, especially cookies. She just loves them. But at the same time, she knows that having too many of them is not very good for her. This is a typical video of Sarah trying to stop herself from having that one last cookie. Have a look. So does Sarah think having those cookies is a good idea? Definitely not. As we said, she's trying to limit the number of the cookies she has. In other words, she's trying to cut down on the cookies. Cut down on is a great phrasal verb we can use as a synonym to the verb limit. So I can say, "I need to cut down on my screen time." Or, "I'm trying to cut down on smoking." Let's have a look at another clip. This video showed a group of people starting a trip. Whenever you want to express this meaning in English, you can use the phrasal verb set out. So I can say, "We need to set out early," or "They set out at sunrise." As you can see, set out is a phrasal verb which is normally used with a time expression. So, what time do you normally set out when going on holidays? Let's have a look at another video. My goodness, isn't it just great to relax in a bathtub? If you're ever looking for a phrasal verb to use in this context, chill out is a great one. It's a perfect informal synonym to relax, so we can say, "I love chilling out on the beach," or "Let's grab a drink and chill out." Chill out can also be used as an adjective when we put a hyphen between chill and out to describe an area where you can relax. So next time you're at a hotel, ask for directions to the chill out area. And now it's time for another video. So in here we saw a group of people starting to work on something serious. If you ever want to express this meaning in English, you can use get down to. This verb is very natural when you want to talk about starting something that's serious or difficult to do. So we can say, "Let's get down to business," or "I need to get down to studying." Notice that in that last sentence we use the verb after get down to. And the surprising thing about this verb here may be that it has an ing. It is really strange sometimes to see an ing after the preposition to, but in here that's the only correct form we can use. So just remember, if you use a verb after get down to, it needs to be a gerund. And now it's probably time we got down to studying another verb. Have a look. Right, that guy did seem very hungry, didn't he? He literally devoured the burger. In other words, he wolfed it down. Wolf down is an informal proficiency phrasal verb that you can use in the context of eating something very fast. So I can say, she wolfed down the donut. Or, he ordered a burger and wolfed it down. As you can see, wolf down is a separable phrasal verb, which means that we can put an object between the verb and the preposition. If you're not sure how separable phrasal verbs work, check out one of our previous videos where we explained this concept. Link in the description. And now our last verb today, and it's also a separable one. Have a look. So this time it was a group of people finishing a meeting. Whenever you finish a meeting, a discussion, or a presentation, it's often natural to use the phrasal verb wrap up, which basically means to finish. However, wrap up can't be used as a synonym to finish in every situation. It's a little bit more specific, and in here we're going to look at two very typical examples of how it's used. First, we often use it with words such as it or this to say that a meeting or a presentation is finishing or finished. For instance, I can say, let's wrap this up, or this wraps it up. The other typical use of wrap up is when we want to be specific about the way we're finishing something in. For instance, she wrapped up by telling a joke. Or, let me wrap up with a quote. Notice that if you use wrap up in this way, it's normally followed by the prepositions by or with. So now it's time to wrap this up and do some exercises to practice these verbs. Just as in our previous videos, I'll show you a sentence with some words in bold. Your task is to think how to replace the words in bold with one of the phrasal verbs we have just studied. Let's do the first one together. Have a look at this sentence. So can you remember what phrasal verb we can use when we want to talk about traveling and going somewhere? If you're thinking about be off to, then you are absolutely right. Janet is off to Crete tomorrow. Now that you know how this exercise works, have a look at the next sentence and try to replace the words in bold with another phrasal verb. So in here we're talking about negotiations, right? This is something serious and probably hard. Do you remember the phrasal verb we can use to talk about starting something hard or serious? If you answered get down to, then you did brilliantly. Let's get down to the negotiations, shall we? Next sentence. We talked about finishing something, such as a meeting or a presentation, not a very long time ago, right? So can you remember the phrasal verb we use in this context? Again, if your answer was wrap up, then well done. She wrapped up the meeting with a useful summary. Next. Right, this is a complete change of context, and now we're talking about eating something fast. Do you remember the phrasal verb we can use in this context? If you answered wolf down, then very well done. The child wolfed down the sandwich. Remember that wolf down is a separable phrasal verb, so you could also say the child wolfed the sandwich down. Let's look at another sentence. Right, this one is talking about relaxation. Do you remember the woman from the bathtub? What phrasal verb do you use when you want to express the meaning of relax? chill out. Sunday afternoon is the perfect time to chill out. If you don't have children, that is. Let's have a look at another sentence. This one talks about starting a trip. And do you remember which phrasal verb we can use in this context? Let me give you a clue. The first word in this verb has the most meanings of all the words in the English language. Set. And the preposition is out. Set out. What time are we setting out tomorrow? Let's look at another sentence. This time we're talking about limiting something. Can you remember which phrasal verb we used in this context? It's cut down on. I should cut down on my screen time. 2 more sentences to go. Let's have a look. So how do we express the meaning of feeling sad? If your answer is be down, you are correct. Fiona seemed to be down this morning. And our last example. How do you express the meaning of being interested in something through phrasal verbs? If you're thinking of being into something or going in for something, then you are completely right. I didn't know you were into cycling. Or, I didn't know you went in for cycling. Well done. And now, as tradition dictates, we're going to use all these verbs plus another 20 in a story about my holidays. But before we do that, if this video is bringing you any value or teaching you anything useful in English, make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future content. And if you're not ready for that type of commitment yet, do like the video as it gives me feedback and lets me know I'm doing a reasonably good job teaching you English. Incidentally, it also lets YouTube know that this is a video worth recommending to anybody who wants to learn English. So do give it your thumbs up. And now we're ready for the story. Listen and see if you can understand all the phrasal verbs we have learned today. As teachers, my wife and I enjoy very long holidays that last for the whole of August. In other words, yes, we're one of those lucky people who can be off for the whole month. So every year, well before the summer is underway, my wife and I sit down together with our little kids and start planning the holiday. And so the fun begins. Because we have holidays for such a long time, it's actually a challenge to plan our vacations. Everyone wants to do different things, so making everyone happy is not always easy. For example, I'm into nature, and after spending 11 months in my room sitting down in front of a computer screen teaching English, all I want to do is spend as much time as possible surrounded by forests, mountains, and lakes. My wife, on the other hand, goes in for cities and enjoys spending her time exploring historic city centres and dropping by as many souvenir shops as possible on the way. Plus, we have our 2 little kids, and they're just interested in having a great time, which usually means checking out all possible local playgrounds. Challenge number 2 is packing. When flying by plane, and we almost always do, our luggage allowance is limited, so we really need to cut down on the number of clothes, shoes, and accessories that we decide to take with us. So it's a bit stressful to work out what to take and what to leave behind. In fact, if you have any tips on how to prepare luggage effectively when traveling with children, do let me know in the comments below. Anyway, once the suitcases are packed up, which is usually mere minutes before actually starting the trip, we're ready to set out. I'm Polish, And living in Barcelona, I really miss my family. So every year, visiting Poland is a must. This year, we left for Poland just before the end of July, so while my wife and kids were having a blast popping into incredible pastry shops, and oh my god, you have to try Polish pastries, and going around playgrounds in my hometown, I was doing my final classes this academic year from my parents' home. Now, Poland is a great country, but the weather in summer is completely unpredictable. You can be enjoying sunshine chilling out at an outdoor cafe, and minutes later the sky clouds over and it starts pouring down as if there was no tomorrow. Not surprisingly, bad weather really gets to us, so after a few days of cold and rain, we're all a little bit down and starting to count down the days until the moment we get back to Spain. And Spain is always lovely. Even if there's rain, you can expect the skies to clear up in a moment and for the sun to start beating down again. This year we were off to a region we hadn't been to before called the Aragonese Pyrenees. It's probably one of the most beautiful mountain regions in Spain, and hiking every day was even better than working out at the gym. All of us really enjoyed it. Well, all of us, except perhaps for my wife, who, as you know, is really into cities and doesn't go in for trekking too much. In our last week of holidays, we popped by Santiz, a tiny little village near Salamanca, where my father-in-law has a house he's been rebuilding. And then, just to wrap our vacations up, we went to Logroño, the capital of pinchos, little delicious snacks that you can wolf down in one bite. Oh my god, they are completely out of this world. In fact, if you're interested in watching any vocabulary videos about pinchos or other things related to my holidays, you can visit my Instagram account. And now, back in Barcelona, it's time for us to get back to normal life. The holidays are sadly over. My wife is going back to teaching maths to a group of rowdy teenagers, my kids are getting back to school, and I'm getting down to working on my YouTube channel seriously. How did it go? Were you able to follow and understand the phrasal verbs in the story? Let me know in the comments below. Remember that you can download a full summary of all the verbs from the story, plus the exercises that we did in this video, from a link in the description. And now, if you have 10 more minutes to learn English, why don't you click one of these 2 videos and I'll see you right there. Take care, keep learning, and enjoy the process. Thank you very much for watching.